Starting to work. It's working. All right. This is Rocco Jerome.
Hello, Josephine.
What's that?
I said, hello, Josephine.
Yeah, right on. We got James Porter on the line. What's going on, James? How you feeling?
Living my life out here in Chicago, and it's raining as we speak. I can hear the raindrops right outside the windowsill.
Yeah, and you got a little bit of coffee you were saying right before you started rolling. So the listeners are just going to have to. They're just going to have to
be as suave as I can be. Lord knows how long that will last, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, they'll just have to live with it, man.
Yeah.
So James, it's good that we're friends. It took a long time for us to become friends, and all of our mutual friends, they thought we already had because we like a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, that's how I remember it. I mean, I never will forget. I mean, your name has been coming up, and I know you wrote for a few Chicago rockabilly fanzines.
I did.
I want to say Holler.
I did.
You're doing that, right?
I did that. I wrote for Review. There may have been others that I'm forgetting that'll get me in trouble if they listen to this. But yeah, I've always been a big part of my heart has belonged to the Chicago rockabilly scene since I was just a kid, and yeah, it's a great thing. I'm glad that it exists and that it seems to be thriving.
Yeah, sure. I mean, those are my friends, so of course, hometown pride and all,
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. When did ask a really loaded question? At what point in your life did you know that music was going to be a big part of it for you?
When I got my first record player for my 5th birthday.
Nice, very good.
It was a GE portable stereo.
That's excellent. Yeah.
And my first record was a Jackson 5 LP.
Ah, that's good. Which one?
Looking Through the Windows.
Yeah, that's great. Right on, man.
Yeah, 1970, whenever.
Yeah, whenever that was.
1972, I'll say it, no big deal.
Yeah, I think 72. That sounds about right for that.
Yeah.
Was that an automatic thing for you, or were you into soul at that point, or was it just that was the popular thing?
Yes, I was into soul music. I mean, at that point, that early in the game, I was still kind of sorting out my tastes. But I think my parents kind of noticed, like, a little. I mean, I liked toys and cartoons and whatnot a lot when I was a kid, but they also noticed that I kind of gravitated towards music.
Yeah.
So, my father would be playing like his blues and country records on the RCA console in the basement, and my mother would be listening to Aretha Franklin. And whenever that thing started going around, it's kind of like kind of grabbed me.
Yeah.
So they got me a record player for a birthday, and I gravitated towards soul. I think my first records would have been like the Jackson 5, the OJ's Backstabbers LP, James Brown, whoever was popular back in 72, 73. I think that's kind of going on down to that. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great time to be buying records.
It was. I sure wish I was like maybe 10 to 15 years older, so I would have known enough to buy the more obscure stuff. But
sure. Yeah.
But the hits were so brilliant that,
Yeah. That's always a thing of it's like, if only you could have been a little bit more cognizant of what was happening. Or if you could have been a little bit older to have seen some other stuff. But that's still pretty righteous, man. There's a lot of great things.
When I was a kid, my mother used to, when we'd go to Woolworths, she'd leave Little JP by the records, and I knew enough that I'd buy the stuff that I knew, like, say, Ray Charles or a Motown record or something.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of LPs that I saw, that were obscure as hell. I didn't know enough to buy them, but I remembered those covers.
Yeah.
And when I got old enough to be searching out obscurities, I'm like, wait a minute, that's that LP with the crazy covers I saw at Walgreens back in Woolworths back in 1975.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, if time travel were ever possible, boy, I'd just go to a Woolworths record bin and buy like half the records for myself. Of course, I have those records, but now probably half the records for eBay, and I sell them.
Yeah. Yeah. All of a sudden, just a big bevy of mint records shows up on eBay. You just call it a warehouse find, right?
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I don't think those really happen anymore. I once saw an article, Cream magazine, that was a rock magazine. Growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And they had Elton John on the cover, okay?
Yeah.
And all the pictures, I think somehow or another, Elton went to some record warehouse in Detroit or somewhere, and he found like all these Motown records, and they showed him like, getting all these sealed LPs from the 60s, like, right out the box.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this in the 80s and thinking, damn,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Elton was a big record geek too. There's a great documentary about Tower Records that's on Netflix, I think, and they talk about how he used to go to the Tower Records early in the morning every Tuesday, and he would buy all the new records that he was interested in. And for the stuff that he liked, he would buy multiple copies because he needed them for his car and for his yacht or whatever and his multiple homes, so that he would be able to have them all in hand.
When you're that rich, boy, you can buy the world.
Yeah, right. You know, I mean, he was...
I still got to give it to Elton. I mean, I never was a big Elton John fan, but I always liked musicians who were into music. I mean, not a lot of people are. You'd be surprised. I mean, like, there are a lot of musicians, particularly the stars, they're really only into, like, what's on the radio so they can keep up with everything, so they can, like, you know, have a hit the next time out.
Right, yeah.
They won't be left behind by the trends. But Elton, I mean, he seems to be into stuff that, he was kind of like you and me. He seems to be like, you know, a collector who likes music, period.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like, you know, he's not trying to, like, keep up with the trends so he won't be left behind. He's, like, buying this stuff because he genuinely likes it, you know, and that, I can always relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's a beautiful thing, man. You know, you always feel a certain kinship when you kind of find that out. I think, you know, that they're on the same team as us. You know.
Yeah, I'm going to flip the script a little bit, and I'm going to ask you a loaded question.
Yeah.
When did Rocco Jerome know the music was going to be a big factor in his life?
You know, I think that the moment which it was clear that it was going to be a really big deal for me, it was right around the holiday season. When I was maybe like 12 or 13, and I'd always liked music, but we weren't really a family that messed around too much with records or cassette tapes. Then I don't think CDs were a thing yet, really.
Yeah.
But my dad got the blue Beatles collection, you know, the one that's the later half years of the Beatles for Christmas. Yeah. And we listened to it every day for a few days. And then I remember that it was like maybe the first day that we gone back to school after the Christmas break had wrapped up. And I came home and I wanted to listen to the Beatles. And my dad was like, I don't want to listen to the Beatles right now. I want to watch Andy Griffith. And so I just sat by the Marantz receiver, which now belongs to me, and I put on some headphones and was listening to the Beatles. And I remember my mom was making dinner, and she came into the living room and kind of motioned at me, you know, to my dad, and my dad kind of shrugged, like, that's just what he wants to do. And that was kind of the moment that I realized the music was going to be a bigger deal to me than it was to my parents and to most people, that it was going to be a thing that was always going to be important to me. And that it meant a little bit more to me than most people. You know, that the whole thing of just whatever somebody's into, if they've got that sort of that, for lack of a better word, that geek, I guess, enthusiast mentality, you know, it's a different thing. It's a different thing for you, you know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and also, too, one thing I noticed, I mean, I was probably more of a teenager as a child than I was the actual teenager, because when I was a kid, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old, I'm practically a newborn baby, and everything's new to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I pretty much liked everything new, you know, soul-wise that was, like, coming out, right? I got to rock later on.
Yeah.
But everything new soul-wise, but I think what got me into, like, white rock music was, like, say, listening to the oldie station.
Right, absolutely. Right, yeah, right. Yeah.
And I think maybe I probably told you before, I mean, it's like, there was an automated oldie station in Chicago called WFYR.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to listen to that station sort of as a goof. I mean, not that I was necessarily in the music, but I always had to think, like, nostalgia, because when I was coming up, that was when, like, the first 50s revival was, like, really starting to happen.
Yeah, in the 70s,
you know?
Sure.
And, you know, all of that, you know, like American Graffiti and Let the Good Times Roll, and, you know, I mean, all these rock and roll revivals and whatnot.
Yeah.
And Chuck Berry was kind of having a comeback, you know, and that kind of intrigued me from a distance. And I started listening to WFYR, this oldie station, just kind of as a group. I mean, it was cool because I got to hear, like, the older soul songs that I missed, you know, but also to listen to stuff that, like, I thought was kind of corny and quaint in a lot of ways. You know, it's like, ha, 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 the devil bike. You know, I'm like, ho, 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 the grassroots. next thing you know, I'm walking to school and I got like the Grassroots song playing in my head, you know, and it kind of crept up on me. And it really, I told you about buying records with Woolworths earlier in the conversation.
Yeah.
It really hit me when, again, we're back at Woolworths. Okay, I keep wanting to say Walgreens, but, you know, Woolworths.
Yeah.
We're back at Woolworths, you know, on like a spring day in 1976. I'm there with my mom. She's, you know, home by the records, you know, and as a wild hair, you know what I decided to buy? 8-year-old black kid in 1976. You know what I decided to buy? Roy Orbison's Greatest Hits. You know, I
Very
bought
good.
that, and I bought that in this Oldies but Goodies compilation, Golden Goodies of 19.
Oh, I know those. Yeah.
I bought those two albums that day, and that opened up a brand new world for me musically.
Man, I haven't thought about those compilations in years, those oldies but goodies. And there was so many volumes of those. And they had like purple, yellow, green covers.
Right, Oldies but Goodies, and there was another one called Golden Goodies.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I guess, you know, by me being an experienced collector by now, it's like I have a few of them, but not all of them, because they're pretty common songs. They've been compiled on other records.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
They're pretty cool as far as like starter kits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For anybody like 50s and 60s rock and roll.
Well, and they're that type of deal where once you get used to that song order, you'll always expect to hear the next song, right?
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
You know that deal. Or it's like some compilation, and you know this is where you expect to hear Bebop Lula because you just heard Johnny B. Good or whatever it is.
Exactly. You know, if you hear like a certain song, you expect to turn over the record.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great thing.
Feeling I get all the time. You know. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you're experimenting with different types of stuff. That's good. You know, I mean, I've always said that you can understand any culture if you can understand the music of the culture. There's just so much that is right in the grooves of all types of music. And one of my other chestnuts is that music is like food, and you wouldn't just eat one kind of food all the time. You wouldn't just eat egg salad sandwiches for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing too, I mean, music, I mean, if you're a foodie, you know, you're into stuff that's like, you know, not, that, you know, might be a little exotic, but it appeals to you. You're not into it because it's bad.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's really funny. I mean, I had like, I mean, this hasn't happened to me often in life, but two significant times when it happened. I mean, once I used to work in a record store, you know, and there were a lot of people who shopped at the record store with like hip hop and whatnot, and they would be like, James, how come you not have the Mary J. Blige like the rest of us? How can you just have Slim Harpo crap, you know? You know, what is this Little Richard stuff you listen to, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I don't begrudge anybody's musical tastes, but also, too, I mean, it's like, I mean, of course, I mean, I was used to it when I was like in high school. That's when everybody was like really, really, you know, concerned about buying whatever was new.
Right.
You know, but by this time I'm in my early 20s, and here's like people who are like in their early 30s, and they're buying the new stuff just to be hip.
Right.
And they can't fathom that anybody would like, you know, go off the charts and just buy like, you know, anything that appeals to them randomly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And somewhere down the line, I used to have a girlfriend, you know, who thought that she always told me that, you know, that me and my collector friends were elitists because we wouldn't want to listen to everything that everybody else likes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not really, I don't get that. You know, I mean, it's like you like. I mean, music is there for the taking, and it's kind of like I've said before. It's like I try not to have conversations about music with people who only believe there's two kinds of music, old and new.
Indeed, yeah.
I don't break it down like that, brother. I
mean, yeah. You're better off to just avoid the subject if that's the way that you're leaning. You know.
Yeah, more like good and bad. That's a whole other thing altogether.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
I, you know, when I was a young guy, you know, like a kid growing up, I was always into older music, and the thing was that it gave me a certain strength. I always felt like, you know, there was a bigger world that I was a part of because I understood this music, and you know, I used to go around high school looking like a 50s juvenile delinquent. That's how bitten by that bug I was. I had the big pompadour. Before I knew there was a scene anywhere, before I even knew there was anybody else doing it, it's just what I was wanting to do. I was moved to do it from hearing, Link Wray for the first time and getting heavy and all.